Hi, I'm Anna Marie Cox, and my heart is a locked room mystery.
Hi, I'm Daniel Dresner, and our generation still carries the old feelings.
Welcome to Space the Nation, where we look at science fiction through the lens of
Disruptive innovation.
and phenomenology. Today, we'll be talking about Kazuo Ishiguro's Klara and the Sun, which is available at book thingy places.
I did write that in the script, listeners. Yes.
Yeah, so that's Dan's fault. I sound like an idiot.
Well, I had to have some kind of variation. It's available in bookstores, virtual and
bookstores,
real.
wherever
Yes.
the book things are sold.
Yes.
In the next few weeks, we'll be talking about Aquaman for schlock and awe. And boy, am I excited for Aquaman. How many times has that sentence ever been uttered?
Outside of Entourage, I don't think many is the answer.
And Alex Garland's latest, genuinely excited for Civil War. Although a little disturbed because I look a little bit like Kirsten Dunst.
Mm-hmm.
And she is clearly in danger.
She's in peril in various times just in the trailer. It's pretty obvious, yes.
And we have lots of ideas, but are always taking suggestions. And indeed, kind of more than usual right now. We haven't planned out the next few months.
That's true. So and this is a case where, like, if you have interesting suggestions, we might act upon them relatively quickly. And the way to make sure that we act upon your suggestions, just to be clear,
is the way to make sure we hear about them.
Yes, that we would be aware of this is that you have to become a patron. If you're already a patron, you know this already. But if you're not, consider becoming one. Our Patreon page is patreon.com/spacethenation. It's a nice, thriving community. There are lots of benefits. You get early access to podcasts. You get access to our Discord community, which is wonderful. You will get access to the episode that we eventually record for our patrons only, the 250th celebration, which will be the Hunt for Red October.
250th patron celebration, 250th to be clear. Patron. It sometimes feels like we've been around for 250 years, but...
I remember back in the day, during the colonial period, when we were doing this. You know,
there wasn't a lot of science fiction to talk about.
Yes. I mean, we'd just be ranting about the Stamp Act for the first 20 minutes of the podcast. It was a little bit, it got political at times. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
So yes, become a patron and you will know right away if you're not a patron. You should know at this moment, because if you're not a patron, you heard some ads. And if you are a patron, you don't have to hear ads. That's probably the biggest reason to become a patron, as far as I'm concerned. Someone who hates ads. This is a character defect of mine, Dan. I spend money I probably shouldn't spend in a way to
avoid ads.
Do the stuff without ads. Yeah. Like I go ahead and upgrade a lot of my streaming services because
you know what? I'm kind of with you on this in the sense of I've got Paramount, and I think there's one other one where there's
Amazon now they have ads where you have to pay
Hulu's the other one.
Ads. Hulu.
And
yep.
We haven't upgraded yet, but I have to admit I am offended about the fact that I simultaneously have to pay them directly and have to hear ads. It should be one or the other. These businesses have to make money. I get that. But having to pay both in terms of time and money, I find offensive, and it's something that pisses me off. Yeah.
And I will let people know, if you would like us to benefit from your participation in capitalism, it is better to become a patron than to listen to ads.
That is correct. Maybe the post-employed want to hear ads, but I doubt it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, pretty sure they don't. Yeah.
So I think that we are going to move on to, Dan, I haven't asked you in a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Anna. And the reason I'm doing well is that I am not going anywhere for quite some time. I have been traveling a shit ton for the last 2 months, including to Austin, which was wonderful. It was wonderful to see you. But let's put it this way. In the last 2 months, I took 7 trips. That is a lot. And it was actually evoked sort of pre-pandemic levels of travel for me. And one of the things the pandemic taught me was that that was too much travel, and so I don't want to travel that much now.
You're actually really kind of a homebody, except for the jaunts to
Serbia,
French Polynesia,
Antarctica,
Antarctica, exactly. That kind of thing, right?
Right. But let me say, the French Polynesia one came with Erica, which that's a different category of travel. And one of the 7 trips I took did include my darling wife, but most of them did not, and I don't like that, and I get grumpy. But I don't have any of those trips for the next couple months, and that puts me in a very good mood.
I'm
How
glad
are
to hear it.
you, Anna?
Kind of up and down, but I am reflecting the state of the Austin weather. As a bipolar person, I don't really like it when people use that term
Mhm.
outside of a mental health diagnosis. But this weather,
Yeah.
I'm really tempted to describe it that way. And I
Mhm.
guess if you think of it as poles, like temperature poles, because it's going to be 90 today, and then like this weekend, it's going to be in the 40s.
Oh, wow.
So
That is,
overnight 40s.
but I
But
mean, this is the month where that happens. I mean, I don't know about Texas, but in New England, March and October are the months where like it can
it
go from being sweltering to being freezing.
it's been that way for a couple months here, and
Mm.
it's fine. Like I actually prefer this to when it will be 100 degrees every day for 90 days.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
I was actually thinking, Dan,
Hmm.
so I can't really do much traveling myself these days
Hmm.
for many reasons, including not getting paid to go places anymore.
That is a
But I was
reasonable reason
thinking
to do this. Yeah.
I need to get out of town in August. And so I was thinking, and also the other reason it's expensive to me to travel on my own because of the dog thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
Exley cannot be dog sat. He has to be at a kennel.
Hmm.
I was thinking about maybe in August I'll throw Exley in the Subaru
Hmm.
and like drive north.
Oh.
Maybe visit New England. I have my, aunt and
Ooh.
uncle there.
Oh, that sounds
So
interesting. I
maybe,
would.
but you know what? I think Exley would actually be better meeting people away from our home.
Right, because he wouldn't feel territorial, or at least as territorial.
That's right. So
That sounds
anyway,
good.
just putting that on the possible summer agenda, maybe another Space the Nation live show. All
Okay.
right, Dan, let's move on. This book, we're talking about this book.
Yeah.
Klara and the Sun is the last entry of our AIDs of March series. And
Hmm.
Dan, as you reminded me
Hmm.
when we were texting about this book and how much I hated it,
Yes. Listeners, let's
there's
just
a
get this out of the
connection. There's
way.
a connection between
Anna really
this
didn't
book
like
and
this book.
another. I really did not like this. So it
And
did not surprise me at all when you told me.
mhm, this is also an Obama or Obama entry. This was recommended by Barack Obama, I believe, at the end of 2020, his end of 2021 book list. So this makes this a twofer for us. It's an efficient use of our podcast time.
Because that's what we strive for in
That's
this
what we always strive for in the
podcast.
podcast. We know that
Efficiency.
our patrons value efficiency. Okay. That is the thing
we
that they value most of all. So, like, we're like, if
we
we can
should
do this
talk
thing.
faster.
Well, maybe our listeners like listen to us at 2 times the speed, which.
That's right. We could save them the button push by just talking faster.
Mhm.
Anyway, Daniel, then we are to the next question, which is will this podcast ruin it for you?
Well, yes, I'm going to say. So again, Anna really did not like this book. I actually did like it a little bit. I mean, it's not perfect. There's things we're going to talk about, but I did enjoy it. And if you want to be surprised, if you want to learn about the plot, there will be plot reveals that we're going to discuss about. And
Right.
part of the book's pleasure, I think, is puzzling those things out along the way. At least for me, it was.
And depends on your definitions of pleasures and puzzling,
That's fair.
Dan.
Yep. Yep.
So, what I would say is my feelings about this book remind me a lot of my feelings about Arrival,
Hmm.
the Amy Adams one,
The
not the
Amy Adams,
Charlie
Jeremy Renner, Denis Villeneuve.
Denis
Uh,
Villeneuve, and,
Denis
and not the
Villeneuve.
Charlie Sheen vehicle,
Yes.
which I believe is the Arrival. That's
That
the
was the
distinction.
Arrival. That's
Yeah.
true. We've done
Yeah.
both Arrival and The Arrival. So you're right.
Right. So this reflects my feelings about Arrival rather than Arrival, which I actually liked better than Arrival.
Which
But
is
my
a
feeling,
sad statement about your taste in Arrival.
I know my
Yeah.
taste in Arrivals. So the reason I didn't like the Amy Adams vehicle is that I had problems with some of the details.
Hmm.
I had big problems with some of the small details.
Hmm.
Well, one thing that was not a small detail, but that I do appreciate that it is a gorgeous movie with good performances and a excellent soundtrack. Man,
Oh, the
that
soundtrack is
soundtrack is
amazing.
like
Yeah.
amazing. Like I can enjoy that soundtrack,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
reservations. In this book, I understand why people like it.
That's a generous way of putting it on. Yes.
I mean, I feel that way about Arrival. People who love that movie, I get why you love that movie, and I am not saying it is a terrible movie. And that is how I feel about this book. I feel, well, you know what? There's some things wrong with this book that I think are genuinely wrong with it.
Yeah. No.
But
So listeners, if you want to listen to the Arrival episode, you should. Like, I loved that movie, and so Anna and I, that might have been the very first thing. That might have been our very first podcast episode where we split on something.
Yeah, like in a big way.
Yeah, in a big way. And we're also split on this one, although I did not like this book as much as I liked Arrival. So I am not going to defend it to nearly the same extent, but I am going to defend it somewhat from honest critique. So it's going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, not like a 28 Days Later or Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe level fun, if that's her idea of fun. But
also, to be fair, listeners never knew the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe one because we deleted the one where we really got into it. Yes, which is just as well for everyone concerned.
Yeah, everyone just have to imagine like what. Actually, if you know us at all, you can kind of probably imagine what it was that we thought about. Debated. No, not even debated. It was the fucking you got triggered, man. That was actually what happened.
Yes. By you saying that Christmas was not a Christian thing. To be clear.
All right, we're gonna start
Santa.
again.
Santa. Yes. No. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Moving on to previous experience.
And I think, Anna, you had a little bit.
Oh, wait, I was going to say, if this book sounds interesting at all to you, stop the podcast, go ahead and read it.
Absolutely. Yes.
If it doesn't sound interesting at all, if you, like me, see Obama and Nobel Prize and are like, oh,
total bummer.
Yeah. Then listen to the podcast.
Yep.
Do not stop it. Just go right on. All right. Previous experience. I did vaguely remember that Obama liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to add that infamous microchip smuggler Bill Gates has also recommended it.
Mm-hmm.
His quote is, "It makes you think about what life with super intelligent robots might look like." To which I have to say, super intelligent robots?
Yeah, this is where I'm going to agree with you. Spoiler alert: the protagonist, he's an AI, not that intelligent. So yeah.
Well, it depends on how you define intelligence. She has some EQ, I guess.
That's true. She does. Yeah. Possibly more than Bill Gates. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And she has microchips under her skin. What about you, Dan?
I remember reading, because this came out during the pandemic, and I remember reading the New York Times book review about it, which was glowing, and therefore wanting to, and the way that I would put it is that, as someone in the policymaking community, very often people say they've read the book when in fact what they've done is they've read a book review. But that said, I did want to read the whole thing. And let's move on to the story behind the story. Anna, I know from our texting, was a touch intimidated, I think, before reading this book, because not so much Obama, but Kazuo Ishiguro winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. So, does this fall into the same category as, let's say, like Margaret Atwood or Colson Whitehead, people who have also won big prizes, but also written a fair amount of genre fiction?
So my question for you, Dan. I think that Atwood and Whitehead are genre writers who have crossed into literature.
Okay. That's certainly
Ishiguro
true of Atwood. Yeah. It's reversed.
And has he read a lot of genre books, Dan? I don't know.
That I don't know. But I mean, he's written two of them. But
it has the feel to me of someone who's like, I am intrigued by this idea of science fiction.
You know what? I want to dip into the waters of genre. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
And so I looked up like his favorite books, and they are Villette by Charlotte Bronte.
Okay.
P.G. Wodehouse books.
Mm-hmm.
Blood Meridian, which is another, Cormac McCarthy is another genre writer. Ghost, written by David Mitchell, who I would say is another non-genre writer. The Odyssey, and South of the Border, West of the Sun by Hakuri Murakami, who is another non-genre writer.
Let's face it, like the point is that you can see why this falls under an Obama pick, which is he is a literary person writing science fiction, that it by definition is appealing to someone like Obama. Yeah.
Yeah. And if readers feel like they have heard his name before,
Mhm.
he also wrote Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go, which, were big deals
Yeah.
as well. And I was curious about Never Let Me Go, and now I am not.
It should be pointed
I
out
am
that,
no longer curious about it.
let's put it this way, both of those were wound up being made into films, pretty good films, if memories. Certainly, The Remains of the Day is a very good film. And this is also going to be turned into, I believe, a film. The casting I saw was Jenna Ortega as Klara and Amy Adams as the mother. So once again, it's a rival. Like, it's all the Amy Adams verse for
And
you.
I told you when we were texting, I could see this being a better movie
Mm-hmm.
because, in part, and we shall discuss this,
Yeah.
perhaps overmuch, but I did not like being inside Clara's mind. And
Yeah.
a movie, of course, would,
Would
unless it
be,
had just incessant voiceover,
yeah.
which I guess could happen,
Oh, it
but a
certainly
movie
could.
would not take us into her infuriating thought patterns.
No, look this way. I am actually legit intrigued by what Jenna Ortega could do with this because it would be an interesting. There's potential there, but yes. All right, let's get to Chekhov's What's It. This is the thing that often appears in the first act of the book that winds up being pertinent towards the end. Anna, what do you have?
Chekhov's son, Dan.
Oh man, yeah, of course. I mean, it's
The sun.
the sun. Yeah, that's also the.
Him.
I have Chekhov's manager. Also, interesting cameo at the end, which we will talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Let's get to the plot. In other words, let's get through this so Anna doesn't have to talk about this nearly as much. So, the jacket blurb. Our protagonist is Klara, an AF or artificial friend sometime in the near future. AFs are AI robotic helpmates for only children who might need a companion while they study at home. They are solar powered and very expensive, beyond the means of all but those of high rank. Klara begins the book as merchandise for sale on display in a downtown store waiting to be bought. This means that sometimes she's in the display window, sometimes in the back. All the time, she is observing the goings-on in the city and developing her own, not entirely accurate hypotheses about how the world works. As a solar-powered being, it is somewhat unsurprising that she develops a quasi-theological attitude towards the sun. Klara captures the attention of a 14-year-old girl named Josie, who periodically comes into the city with her mother, Chrissy. Eventually, Josie persuades Chrissy to buy Klara, and she goes to live with them in a nice country house with Melania, the housekeeper. The only other people who live nearby are Josie's best friend, Rick, and her mother, Helen. Klara learns that Josie is a lifted, a child who has undergone advanced genetic engineering as a means of getting ahead in the workplace. It's a little confusing there, but certainly to get into college. Rick is very bright, but has had no such augmentation. Josie,
It's like,
yes,
Dan, would you have your children undergo genetic engineering in order to get into college?
yeah, the answer is no. It's a hard no for me, and also it raises some questions about the political economy of the Claraverse, as it were. But yeah,
Yeah.
just we'll go with that.
Josie is my first problem with the book.
No, this is a serious weakness because it turns out that Josie is also sick, a risk that comes with lifting, and it seems like a pretty big goddamn risk. That process.
I wish we'd been given odds. Sorry, I wish we'd been given some kind of odds about how often that happens.
Yeah, that would have actually made a little more sense then, because like I could understand an unlucky family, but it seems like it's a lot more than that.
And also, it happened twice for them.
Right. This process caused Josie's older sister, Sal, to get sick and die years earlier. Klara tends to Josie as best she can, even though there are challenges. Those challenges include Chrissy's maternal anxieties, Josie's trips into the city to have her portrait taken by a very shady artist named Capaldi, Melania's suspicion of AFs, class tensions between Josie and Rick, and the general snottiness of affluent teens. A trip to Morgan Falls goes somewhat awry for Josie, and as Josie's illness threatens to take a turn for the worse, a fateful trip back to the city offers all kinds of promise and peril for Klara, Josie, and Rick. When that trip does not work out as planned, Klara resorts to some more desperate measures to assist Josie.
Sorry, desperate measures? Spoiler alert.
I mean, I don't, I was trying not to provide the spoiler alerts, but like, should we do this now?
I'm just gonna do it because
Go,
it's a
go.
problem with the book. It's a huge
Yeah,
problem with the book.
yeah.
So quasi-theological ideas about the sun does not quite do justice to the role the sun, who is a
Mhm.
title character, you
Mhm.
know, in this book plays. And when you say more desperate measures to assist Josie, what you mean is she throws open the blinds, like to have the sun cast its power on Josie.
This is, for me, and I will grant you this, the fatal weakness in the book. I still
It
don't
is
get what
pretty
the hell
dumb.
happened. I no, but I actually, and to be fair, like I got the timing sequence up, but she does like try to kill the Cootings machine in the city, and that actually was real risk to Clara because
Yeah.
like she has
Okay.
her like the father like take some fluid
Take
from
some
her
of
to,
her cognitive juice.
yeah, to
And
destroy
all
it.
that, see, like, beginning, get right into like my problems.
Yeah.
Like, so Clara believes that the sun can heal Josie.
Yes.
This is an idea that comes to her almost immediately upon going to live with the family because she
It
already thinks the sun is God.
right, and she also saw the sun. She thought she saw the sun heal. Like, was it Beggar Man?
A
Was how?
drunk guy.
Yeah,
I
basically,
think that
yeah.
what
Yeah. Like basically she sees a homeless guy and
and
its
his dog,
dog
to
at
be
his
fair.
dog, yeah,
Yeah.
to be fair, appear to be dead and then they're fine the next day. And of course, for anyone who's, a human recognizes they probably just passed out and then recovered. But for Clara, her cause and effect
Oh,
relationship is, oh, the sun is the god and the sun has demonstrated benevolence towards the beggar man.
yes. And then she further, so this AI is as dumb as fuck. And oh, that brings me to the other thing, which is that AF, I kept for a while kept reading as fuck.
Yeah.
So like she
Hmm.
talks about the other robot named Rex
Yeah.
as fuck Rex. Like she saw them AF Rex.
Maybe she was into Rex. I mean, I'm just, yeah.
Like dope as fuck, like dumb
Yeah,
as
yeah.
fuck. She's as dumb as fuck. It's because not only does she believe that the sun is a god or the god,
Hmm.
but there is a Cootings, which I was it is it just named Cootings? I had to it's a bad book. I kept
Hmm.
on looking shit up, being like, am I missing something?
No, I was
Like
doing that as well. There were like I wondered if there was a company named Cootings that we were supposed to figure out, but I don't think
or
so. I
was it
think that's
I
just.
thought maybe, oh, it's a cooling machine and that she's misread the L and the
Oh, see, I thought Cootings was
T.
like a corporation, a corporate name, like
Oh, that
Caterpillar or something.
too. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. But so
I
she
don't know.
sees this thing that I actually think might be a paver.
Yeah, no, that's what I. It's an asphalt,
Yeah. Yeah.
machine. Yeah,
And
that's what I
it's
thought.
feeling in a, yeah, it's feeling in a what do you
Pothole or
call it?
something.
Pothole.
Yeah.
And it belches smoke into the sky. And she has this idea that pollution is bad and
How
that the
dare
sun,
she? I mean, that's not incorrect, but
well, I
yeah.
mean, and that this is pollution. That's see, that's the childlike thing. Is she was like,
Mhm.
and that is what causes pollution is this one machine belching out smoke.
Right. So, okay, this might be the fundamental disagreement we have about this novel because, on the one hand, I agree with you. Clara has, as the AI, some fundamentally weird theories about how the world works. That is
Right.
undeniably true.
Okay.
I didn't have a problem with that, though, because, I mean, current AIs often have weird theories about the way the world works. The difference is that, what made this novel interesting for me is that, in our interaction with ChatGPT or other AIs, we don't see their thought process. And so we just get the readout, which, often reads like competent bullshit. I was willing to tolerate the idea of an AI having a really screwed up cause and effect relationship on some things, but not others, because that's probably true. It's just that we never see it because we don't know how these AIs think. And so that was why I was more tolerant of this than you, I think.
Okay. Here's a question though.
Yep.
These AIs are supposed to be friends,
Hmm.
au pairs to children, right?
Right. Emotionally intelligent.
Emotionally intelligent. Would you want your kid picking up from its au pair that the sun was a god
And this is important.
and that it
Clara,
sank into the earth every night? Your kid who you want to go to like Harvard,
yeah,
like
you're
learn
absolutely
from
right.
their au pair that
That would be bad. But what is interesting to me is that if you recall, Clara never actually tells the humans what her theology is. She never says it out loud. This is, the novel is written from Clara's point of view, so we get what she's thinking.
Well, I'm actually thinking from the point of view of like programmers and stuff.
Yeah.
Like also as we have discussed repeatedly because it's really bothered me is that when she gets to the house, she doesn't know what a sink is. She's like,
Yes.
there's a basin in the middle of the kitchen island where
Listeners,
water comes out.
It's hard to describe just how much this vexed Anna.
Well, because it's like, why wouldn't she know what that is?
Yeah.
Right?
And part of this,
and what kind of basic, like, I mean, wouldn't you want to imbue these machines that are going to be around kids, like with some basic understanding of how the world works in case the kid has questions? Like, I don't know. I would just want them. And also she reads magazines, right? And so wouldn't those magazines give her some sense of the world? Like wouldn't she see a sink in a magazine? Wouldn't someone mention like the earth revolving around the sun in a magazine? Or I was like, what in this universe, is there a reason they want to keep robots dumb? That would have been kind of interesting.
Again, part of this is the theory of mind thing, which is to say, I mean, look, one of the things you quickly learn when you read about AIs is that very often the more sophisticated the algorithm that an AI has, the less the designers know how and why an AI learns. In other words, or how the AI derives conclusions. And unless the AI is actually communicating these beliefs, there's no way that they're necessarily going to know that's what they think. And furthermore, they might, I think where you're correct is to say, well, presumably they want to know whether the AI is thinking this stuff. But it's also possible that they care less about that and more about, is the AI going to harm the child? Is the AI showing emotional, intelligence and adaptability? And Clara does do those things. So, in other words, the disturbing thing that you have, and I share it, is that Clara's own internal monologue is at times ridiculously simplistic and wildly off base and other things. But because humans don't hear that, I don't know if they would necessarily. It's not a problem in the universe of the novel, I guess.
Right. Okay. And this is where we have to. Okay. Some more reveals. All right.
Yeah.
So she thinks that the Cootings machine causes pollution, and that makes the sun angry. And so when she makes a deal with the sun to save Josie's life, which actually I was at first kind of worried about what the deal would be, what kind of sacrifice she would make. Would she sacrifice Rick? What I mean, again, if they never tell you, then designers would never know. I almost think that would be more interesting if she went to more extreme lengths because of these beliefs, right? So she at first she develops this idea that if she asks the sun, she somehow can get the sun to help Josie. And that begins a few different times where she says to someone, I think I know how to save Josie.
But I can't tell you how.
But I can't tell you. Yeah. And the person's like, okay.
That is okay. That's a fair point. There should have been perhaps a little more curiosity by the humans. Although one wonders,
want to tell me, but you think it'll help her? All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, we should talk more about this, but we should get to why did Obama tell people that he liked
wait, no, I have a couple more things to say.
Oh, okay.
Damn it. And that's, again, this is a big problem. And eventually, so her desperate measure is she sacrifices some of her mind oil to screw up the Cootings machine. And then it doesn't help because there's another
There's just plenty of other Cootings machines. And she begins to realize, you would have thought maybe that would have...
shit. She didn't say, oh, shit. That'd be kind of funny if she cursed, actually. Oh no, what can I do? How can I get the sun to help me? So she goes to the sun and she's like, but Josie and Rick love each other. So surely that means something to you, son. And then there's a storm, but the sun comes out and the sun rays that bursts through. And in Josie's room, the housekeeper's like, oh, I have to close the shades. And the desperate measure that she does is she throws herself in front of the housekeeper and she opens the shades, and that cures Josie. End of story. Literally end of story.
Okay, it's not the end of the story, because actually what happens after that is in some ways the more disturbing part, or disturbing. The part after that I found very disturbing. That part just left me baffled, and so I have no idea what the hell was going on. Obviously, it's not the sun curing Clara. or sorry, curing
Or
Josie.
maybe it is.
Or
See, that's the thing that I found very like
I will say this,
infuriating.
when that actually happened, there was a brief moment where I thought, oh, is this like a simulated world? And that's what's, no, I'm not kidding. That actually was what
Or
I
I was
thought.
like, or Clara's mind juice really did run out.
That's also a possibility. Like,
And this is all Clara's like AI fantasy
yeah,
dream. She's actually now in, computer heaven.
that could
And
have been possible.
like,
But I will grant you that was, for me, this is one of the fatal flaws of the book, which is that plot twist made no sense to me. And I don't understand it. And I don't know what Ishiguro was trying to do with it.
one of the things that, again, it bothered me as well, in part because this is not, to me, good science fiction.
Yeah.
And one of
It's
the
not
things
just not good science fiction. That's not good plotting, period.
well, it's like it's this weird like leap into another genre if we're supposed to believe that the sun did it, right? Or
Right.
is it just a coincidence? If the sun
It
did
has
it,
to be a
it's like
coincidence.
you are reading The Expanse and then someone's a wizard. Like
Mhm.
you're reading The Expanse and
Right.
someone pulls out a sorting hat.
But like, this is where I agree with you that like that was the thing that left me cold because like as I'm reading, I think I had similar reactions to you with like, oh, Clara, honey, come on. You found it more enraging. I was like,
Yeah,
I could be a little
frustrated,
empathetic
right?
for it. But then when she actually gets better as a result of this, I was like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? That obviously couldn't have happened. That was the thing that left me cold. I will
In
grant
the
you that.
Black Mirror version of this, and there
Uh,
have been Black Mirror versions of this, but in
mhm.
the Black Mirror version of this specifically, it would be that Clara's mind juice,
Goes away.
conked out, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
this is some weird AI dream where she gets to save Josie.
Right. And there's multiple Black Mirror plots, I think, along those lines. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on.
Okay.
Why did Obama tell people he liked this science fiction?
So we have different answers to this. I will say it is I really did like the writing at various times. I mean, particularly the descriptions. I actually think it tackles the AI question in an interesting manner, in the sense of, no, I'm not kidding.
We have to post a video of this so people can just see me rolling my eyes constantly as you're
Anna, I mean, no, no, no. You
speaking.
can roll your eyes, but I'm going to defend this, which is the other AIs we've read about all have had malevolent intentions or potentially malevolent intentions. And the thing that I find interesting about Clara is that whatever her flaws are, she actually is trying to fulfill her programming and really does, like, there's a gentleness to Clara, which is interesting in the world of AIs, because mostly when AIs are depicted in science fiction, it's the prospect of malevolence. And I therefore was intrigued by, particularly for a female AI, one that actually proves to be both emotionally intelligent and actually, attempts to be a caregiver.
Yeah, and it's funny because I keep thinking like the better version of this is where Clara, out of her good intentions, accidentally like kills a bunch of people or herself, right? Like
Well, she does do that in the end, I think, but yeah.
well, I think that that's just what happens to AFs.
Yeah, yeah.
They get retired to a
The slow
junkyard,
fade, yes.
the slow fade. So my answer about why Obama recommended this book is you're not going to risk sounding dumb by recommending a sci-fi book by a previous Nobel and Booker Prize winner and
Yep.
like Whitbread winner too. Like he's just got a ton
He's
of
won
awards.
he's
Like
won a ton of awards, yes.
it's like the odds that people are going to complain or think like you made a dumb choice
Mhm.
if you recommend this are very slim.
Right.
And I think our working theory of Obama is he really does not like to take risks with what people think about him, which I understand, and
I
it's
was gonna
worked
say, to
out
be
well for
fair,
him.
like most humans, so this is not unique to Obama.
Well,
Um,
okay.
yeah. Speaking of which, we should, whenever we do an Obama or a Bummer episode, the question is, who is the target demographic that this book is intending? And here we arrived at the exact same demo. And this actually, I think, is another reason why Obama probably recommended it. This is Obama's core demo: anxious, affluent parents.
And I said more specifically, people who worry their kids might not get into an Ivy.
I,
Like,
that was what
yeah.
I that we it was two ways of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next question.
All right. How is this science fiction different from other science fictions? As I said, partially it's because Clara is legitimately, benevolent and, there does express a genuine desire, not just to emotionally bond with Josie, but to, in some cases, sacrifice herself. And also, is somewhat, this is the thing I think I found interesting, particularly towards the end, which is I think as the reader, we're supposed to be horrified that Klara is like essentially sent to a scrap yard after fulfilling her function. And what's interesting to me is that Klara isn't horrified by this. Klara feels like she's fulfilled her mission. She's fulfilled her programming, and therefore actually has a stronger sense of well-being. So that I thought was interesting and weird and disturbing.
I didn't, I, hmm.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
actually kind of bought that in terms of as much as she talks about loneliness
Hmm.
in the book, and there's actually a fair amount of talk on loneliness.
Yeah,
She seems to be living in her memories, which as an AI makes total sense.
right.
You
Yeah.
know, like I don't think she's just completely transferred her state of being into memories. Like she's
Hmm.
just reliving stuff. So, and because it had her story had a happy ending for her in terms of her fulfillment of her mission,
Yeah.
it's fine. She's just rerunning the same thing over and
She's
over.
sort of
And I,
replaying the greatest hits, as it were.
yeah,
Um,
you know, which isn't that bad.
yeah. Ishiguro's world building is frustratingly elliptical at times, but I will
Mm,
say this, it did hook me in the sense of, like they're just little dribs and drabs, like how the AF store is run, references to the lifted or the post-employed, and like we just get little bits of snippets of this. And this is where, Claire as the protagonist, is almost like a child protagonist in that sense.
hmm.
And so that was frustrating. But I will say, like, and this has been a constant theme with our AIs of March series, which is I think the critiques of capitalism are way more interesting than the IR in all of these stories. Maybe they're direct, but like the critique of capitalism is the stronger theme in the entire of all four that we've
They're not
discussed.
very sophisticated critiques.
Yes, not saying sophisticated, but at least they're critiques. Like there's very little IR in what we've discussed, which is fine.
Yeah. They're
But
fairly domestic stories. Even like with Murderbot,
yeah,
I guess what I mean by domestic is like highly interpersonal.
right. The interpersonal stuff is what matters. And in some ways, it's
Yeah.
almost like the zombie genre, and that what matters is not just the zombie, but it's how humans react to that.
Hmm.
And I think that's also true to some extent with the AI. I will say Ishiguro's political economy seems a little weird in that the suggestion is that enough AIs have emerged so that essentially there's a whole category of post-employed people, and I wish that has been developed a little bit further. But this logic of the lifted does not make a ton of sense to me in the sense that, yeah, you can do this, and like the impression you're supposed to get is that they all felt this desperate urge to boost their children. But if it leads to these kinds of medical complications, that seems like a obvious no-go to me. Like that's just weird.
Yeah, especially if it already happened once in your family, unless it's the actuary joke about what are the odds of it happening twice in one family.
Mhm.
But I guess the odds must be pretty good. Like if it happens twice,
You would
you
assume
know,
so, but like, like again, I agree with you. This is where just a couple sentences of exposition of like they are just unlucky. That I would have
or
accepted,
there's
but like,
something in their family
yeah.
that, but even then, if there's some, yeah, I mean, to me, it happened with the one kid. And so why would you risk it with the
Why would you
second
ever
kid?
do it again? Exactly. I agree. And
You
so
know?
it's just very strange.
Yeah. And also, I don't know why they have AFs.
Mhm.
Like, are they just really expensive toys? Is it Teddy Ruxpin?
So
You
this
know,
is
because they seem to go out of business by the end of the book.
right.
Is that there are no more AFs? Like the AF store has gone out of business, and the manager character, when she comes to see Klara, is like, "Yeah, I don't do that anymore." What are you laughing about, Dan?
Are you suggesting, Anna, that the AFs are the Cybertruck of this world?
Or the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yeah.
That there's some craze, and then
Or wait, what's the meta thing? What was the like the virtual reality thing?
the metaverse,
Yeah, the
or like
metaverse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It,
or do you mean like Pokemon?
no,
I
no, I
mean,
mean
like,
metaverse. I mean
okay,
metaverse. Like in
metaverse.
other words, like we have like just in the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of tech bros take a lot of big swings at things that turned out not to be quite as successful as they thought. So maybe that's the way of thinking about
They're the Google
AFs.
glasses.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I mean, it just it seems like she provides some company to Josie, which seems good,
Yeah.
right? But also, she's just like by the of course, even by the end of the novel, she's like standing in a closet a lot of the time.
Which was just yeah, no, that was horrible. As I said, like it was
Like, literally standing in a
Yes.
closet.
Yep.
So it seems more like the Teddy Ruxpin thing. Like you get this super expensive toy for your kid and they love it for a little while and then put it in a closet.
Well, this is a nice segue to other characters that we can talk about. But
Unless
like
this Teddy Ruxpin has a deal with God
the thing that I thought was interesting, and
to save your child's life, in which case, immeasurable value.
the
Saint
character
Ruxpin.
I really liked was Melania, the housekeeper. You know, wonderful, obviously cares for the daughter,
Yep.
very suspicious of the AF. But I like the fact that there was a housekeeper because it raised the obvious question of what is the difference between the housekeeper and the AF? That is actually a legitimately interesting thing. And I like the dynamic between the two of them where Melania eventually comes to trust the AF as potentially, you know.
Although it does raise the question, like, what is the AF for? Also,
Right.
I meant to add, this book is so much funnier if you imagine Melania Trump in the role of the housekeeper.
I do have to wonder if he chose that name deliberately, but yeah.
Now, I will say Melania does have like her English is sort of this weird, clearly not a native speaker.
No, it's reference that she's clearly not from the United States.
Yeah. So, and she has some kind of stereotypical like ways of talking. But then again, some people who are not native English speakers have stereotypical ways.
I was going to say, like, I wasn't terrifically bothered by that. Again, because it's a real character. The character actually clearly cares for Josie and is worried about what's going on. In some ways, I almost wish that Josie had also had a pet because it raises the question of where on the spectrum does an AF fall? Is an AF like supposed to be like a Roomba, or is an AF supposed to be like a robot dog? And you're right, it's not clear where the AF falls, and that's fascinating to me.
You find it fascinating. I found it infuriating.
Fair.
Yes.
Yeah.
So should we talk about the villain of the book, which is of course her mom?
Yeah. Yeah. It was Chrissy the mother. And I have to that part of this might have been that like my favorite phrase in the book is when Ishiguro initially describes her and talks about the angry exhaustion in her eyes. And like that I identify that with a lot of mothers, and that's true. But that said, pretty horrified by what the big reveal is in terms of why she is buying Klara, which is Josie thinks, again, this is a spoiler alert, Josie thinks it's because she's going to get an artificial friend. As it turns out, part of the reason that Chrissy is doing this, and part of the reason that Klara is going for these portraits in the city is that
Josie is going for these
Josie's going into the portraits in the city, is that Capaldi is actually creating a robot that is supposed to be identical to Josie. And in theory, towards the end, the plan is to have Klara's AI inserted into the body of AI Josie and then act as Josie, which is just horrific.
It's horrifying. Like on just so many levels.
Yeah.
First is Josie appears to kind of figure it out.
Right. Eventually, I think the parents do cop to it at some point. I mean, you get that impression.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the stuff that we read, like I know as a parent, like you look at it through the eyes of the parent, like as a childless person, who's working through my childhood trauma shit, sometimes I think of stuff more through the eyes of a child and how astoundingly painful it would be to find that my mom was making an android of me.
Oh, it's just absolutely no. I was horrified by this. And I think also something else that's horrifying, and I don't know if Ishiguro meant this or not, but essentially Klara reacts to this with a remarkable equanimity that I found incredibly disturbing.
Although I didn't find it disturbing. What I found disturbing also was the idea, again, this is like, where does she fall? Is she more like a Roomba or a Teddy Ruxpin or Siri or whatever? They were just, she has a personality. And did you hear that?
I heard a brief.
Siri just piped up in the background.
Oh, okay.
Is there something else I can help with?
She doesn't have an answer for that. Is there something else she can help with?
Siri, stand down.
So,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry. No, Siri, quiet.
Is that your Siri?
That was my Siri.
So, Klara, whatever she is actually a sentient being, right?
Yes.
We can talk about how smart she is or how dumb she is, whatever. Like she has a personality, and it is a caring personality.
Yes.
And it is a distinct personality. And that's one of the things that's interesting in the book too, is how it is distinct from every AI every AI that meet has a somewhat different personality. We don't meet very many. We meet like 3. There's like Rex and Rosa and
there were the B3s, but yeah.
the B3. Yeah. So the idea that you would just obliterate a personality, you would kill someone in order to have your daughter.
Yeah.
And it's not even really, and then this gets to the other level of monstrousness, which is it's not even really your daughter.
Right. That's the part
and it never will be, in part because I think I wrote this, she'll never change. Like and also, which Josie is she going to be? Is she going to be like the sullen, angry Josie who she is when she's dying? Like the one that has all this friction with her mom? Or does her mom want actually a little bit of a different Josie?
Yeah.
You know, a more tractable one.
I didn't think Clara's personality was going to be wiped. What I thought was that Clara was just going to imitate Josie, which is
even
equally
worse
creepy. Yeah, I agree. One other character which just felt very weird, and this was another vibe I had. So Helen, who plays Rick's mother, plays.
You just feel like she's playing her, actually.
Well, no, but she's a character that seems to be coming from it, like waltzing in from a Tennessee Williams play or an Arthur Miller play. Like I wrote, is this Death of a Salesman now, or is this the Glass Menagerie? It was very strange.
Streetcar Named Desire. She's always dependent upon the kindness of strangers. I liked Rick.
Rick was good. And also
I liked Rick. He had some of the best scenes and next to Clara, the most emotionally intelligent, I think.
Oh, yeah, by far. Also, Rick's response when Chrissy was just unspeakably horrible to him towards the end. That scene had a lot of power in it, and I give Ishiguro a lot of credit, and Rick really, has a wonderful moment there.
My thought reading that scene literally wrote, can Amy Adams pull off this level of cruelty?
Oh, like yes.
She's a pretty appealing person. Like one of the things about her, right, is that I guess she's played some pretty sharp objects. She's pretty terrible.
That's what I was thinking. No. Amy Adams is a great actress. Like I have no doubt.
Oh no, she's a great actress. It's just like she's so appealing and charismatic.
I think in some ways that actually will make the role better, because it's precisely that you identify with Amy Adams as an actress, that to watch her presumably act this way will be interesting. I hope they include that scene. Let me put it that way. That scene should go in. All right. And now it's time for our advertising break. For those of you who are not patrons, we'll be right back after this going out of business advertisement for the B3s.
And we're back. Yep. Those B3s are twitchy. I always said that.
It's a good aliens reference. I like that.
Thank you. Dan, I have a question.
Please, Anna, go ahead.
Is there IR in this book?
How would I know, Anna? I mean, while we've been recording, I received an email that I'm now part of the post-employed. My entire faculty.
Not funny.
I'm sorry.
Honestly, post-employed person number 1 on this pod.
And you know what? In the 30 seconds I've had to think about this, Anna, I think the substitutions were the best thing that could have happened to me. I honestly believe we're not kidding ourselves about this. I'm really living for the first time, and God damn it, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to answer this question through the AIs. The answer is that there's very, very little IR in this novel. What there is an exploration of power and norms, and that is somewhat interesting. But in some ways, the answer is far more in your wheelhouse. So who has the power in Klara and the Sun? It is very obviously the mother. And I suppose what's interesting to me was how simultaneously she clearly does have all the economic power. And the one thing that I did feel some empathy for her was how she also simultaneously feels helpless and haunted by her previous choices. So even when she's making these horrific choices, I couldn't completely hate her, because I did kind of empathize with her. But she's easily the only character with real power in the entire novel. The more interesting thing to me, and we talked about this before, is the norms or lack thereof. The obvious thing in Ishiguro's novel is that humans are not entirely sure how to treat AFs. Helen says to Klara at one point, "One never knows how to greet a guest like you. After all, are you a guest at all, or do I treat you like a vacuum cleaner?" And that is certainly true from the reader's perspective. We don't know what to do with AFs, or in our world, AIs, or the disruption they are causing. For example, I was very unsettled by the first act in this book where we see the AFs in the store. Clara's basically trying to get sold. And it kind of felt like almost like they were in the red light district in Amsterdam, where...
Did you actually thought that they were going to be used as sex bots?
No, I didn't think they were going to be used as sex bots, but clearly, like, it's this weird thing where, like, it's a cross between, like a pet store, but they're actually also, like, supposed to be gadgets.
I didn't get that.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I just didn't get that vibe at all. Like,
no, I didn't get the sexual thing.
It was a department store. It's a department store, and they're mannequins basically. And
I guess, but the thing that was like depressing was like they're in the front and they don't give you a sale, so then they're put in the middle and they're put in the back, and they're sentient beings. So I don't know. It was.
No, it's kind of sad, but I just didn't get a red. I don't know. It didn't feel. I don't know. I guess by red light district, I don't know if that you're saying like it's sordid or just sad.
No, it was more sad. Like
sex work is work, Dan.
Right. No, but the red light
districts don't have to be sad.
That fair enough, but I don't know. It's like it's basically a sentient being on display for sale, I guess would be the way to put it. And so that I found jarring, and also the sort of way in which that was done. And I just would have thought that within the context of the novel, the behaviors would have been better sorted out. And I don't. That said, what Ishiguro clearly wants is to sort of disorient the reader, and mission accomplished there. But within the question of how it would work in the book, I think in some ways you're right that the idea that the AFs go out of business, that they're not sustainable, that would actually be consistent with the failure to develop norms. Because if people don't know how to treat them, then they're never actually going to be successfully purchased. So that's fair.
I also like to believe that Rick's, when he rejoins what I can only assume is like a, occupied style quasi-terrorist group, that he like takes out an AI factory,
So I do have a question for you.
Speaking, yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Continue.
Is there a critique of capitalism in this book? There's obviously.
Well, Dan.
Yes, Anna?
This book became a bestseller.
Mm-hmm. And
I bet a lot of those books did not get read. So pollution, excess consumption. Think of all the carbon that got spent, like carting these fucking books around that are just sitting somewhere.
And you and I are part of the problem because we actually bought.
No, we actually read this, which
that's true.
And mine was like, by the way, this was cheaper as a book than Kindle. And that does make me think there's a lot of these sitting around somewhere.
Interesting. Yes.
And sure. I mean, like there's rich people are bad kind of stuff in it, not super sophisticated. But I do think one of the most interesting, and some of those interesting stuff in the book that has to do with capitalism is stuff that seems like it was cut and pasted from some other novel that he might be writing. Yeah. Like the father is in a white separatist community.
It was unclear because like Helen accused him of being fascist.
A fascist. And he says something about, and she's like, you said you were all white unemployed people. And I was like, wait, did he say they were all white? And I don't think he did, but
I don't think he did. And
with her that
Helen is an equally unreliable narrator. People. Yeah. So
I assume Helen's an alcoholic, by the way. That was my read on that situation. Yeah.
That was my read as well. Yes.
And then also Rick does seem by the end of the book to join some kind of terrorist operation. And those are interesting things to me that are just happen kind of out of frame. Now, what I thought was most interesting in terms of criticism of capitalism is a little more of an understated thing, and I'm not sure it's completely intentional, which is that the horror of excess consumption is the ability to engage in monstrous conduct without any break on your action besides what it costs you emotionally, maybe. Chrissy can afford to make what I have to assume is an extremely expensive robot of her daughter. And her only concern is how well it will, quote unquote, work. Right. How well Klara will be able to perform Josie. She doesn't consider what it means for Klara. This is what we discussed, or what it means for Josie, and what it means for her as a person to continue to try and hang on to a relationship that was not that great, even while Josie was living / dying.
This is where I'm going to say, as a parent, like,
Okay, and that's where we get into, I think, like even more like
Yeah.
morally squishy stuff, which is
Mhm.
which version of Josie do you then preserve?
correct. Also, like, does Josie age? I mean, like, that's the part that's really
Does she
creepy to me.
emotionally
Yeah.
mature?
Yeah.
Do you preserve her at a younger age so she's not dying? Or do you have a perpetually dying Josie?
This does
especially
convince. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just since Klara only knows this version of Josie, right? Like, what other version could you have? It presumably it would be less accurate. And again, like, and also would this Josie still love Rick? I mean,
Mhm.
it's a kind of like her. We both have called it horrific and monstrous.
Yeah.
And I think it's this aspect of the book that actually made me the angriest. Although I'm not angry at the book in this case. I'm angry at Chrissy.
Right. No. The book. It's an interesting plot twist. Let's put it that way. And like, but yes, Chrissy is.
But
yeah.
it is the existence of AFs that make this possible. In some, every AF is a policy failure.
I have to say, your conversation about this really does make me want to have us do. I think it's the Black Mirror episode, "The Very Thought of You."
Yeah, that depresses the shit out of me. I'm not gonna
Okay.
not gonna lie. I mean, I honestly have like triggered by Black Mirror and pretty like I just find it. I had to stop watching that show.
I've stopped watching it as well,
and I don't know if it means that it's that good. It just it's so relentless. They're gonna do like they're doing a sequel to the Callister, the USS Callister.
They? Oh, that would be interesting.
I think so. Yeah,
I would
do that episode, which is still depressing. But actually, you know what? It has kind of a happy ending.
It's like quasi happy. Well,
the good guys win.
Yes. Okay.
Ish.
Sort of. Yeah. Yep. We'll do an episode on that. I think that's a good idea. All right. Let's get to this simple question: Anna, Obama or Obummer?
You know where I land.
Yep. Total Obummer for you.
It's an Obummer. I mean, I don't know. I did not enjoy reading it, and I did read it in one day. I mean, that's what the biggest like the blurb I can give it. Read it in one day, Anna Marie Cox.
I think we really do need to start having a category of like worst taglines possible that we could offer, because you always win at that. But I can't quite say Obummer. There were things I liked about this book, but that last twist in the Josie plot just left me baffled, and so I do not like this nearly as much as I liked Arrival. I will say I did talk to my colleague Josephine Wolf, who is an expert on AI, to ask her about would it make sense that the AI would be this dumb on this stuff.
Oh.
And she said, yeah, that would actually like that.
All right.
That totally make like she's read the book.
Here's Marshall McLuhan.
Yes.
Like
I happen to have Josephine Wolf right here. No. All I'm saying is that like, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. So like that.
All right.
Yeah. Just gonna say.
Okay.
All right.
Drip brain juice.
It's time for Discordant Notes. This is when we take a question from our patrons and answer it in the podcast. Carrie asks a very simple question, and I guess we can offer simple answers. Klara or Megan? M3GAN.
I would rather hang out with Mithrigan.
I'm going to say Klara.
I mean, Mithrigan would kill me, but
right. And so I like the idea of hanging out with someone not killing me. I'm just going to go.
All right. With that. I'm kind of being sassy.
It's okay.
Yeah, I guess the non-killing machine is probably preferable, but I'd rather dance with Mithrigan.
Oh, well, I mean, Mithrigan is a better dancer, clearly. That goes without saying. Oh, wait, what's that? It's the cooking machine or something that's causing pollution or whatever.
It's the thing flapping against the house.
Oh, yes. It's the debris field. This is where we talk about things that we might not have discussed previously. I do not have a ton, but Anna, what do you got?
What do you think Michelle Obama thought about this book, Dan?
I would suggest that Michelle Obama judged the mother harshly. That is what I think about it. Yes.
I think she may not have liked it quite as much as Barack did. Yeah. That is my
theory. Or I'm just going to entertain this. She didn't read it, which is not a judgment on Michelle Obama.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just
No,
like, Yeah.
I think she's much more like she would just rather go with the straight sci-fi.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or like whatever. She actually seems like a thriller kind of person to me.
Mm.
Not, like that she probably reads Michael Crichton, just to, has a good time. Good time
Yeah,
with her beach reading.
and again,
She does actual beach reading,
Mhm.
like stuff that you leave at the beach after you
Right,
finish it and
right.
don't just carry it around on
I will
Martha's
say,
Vineyard.
I
like,
bet of the two of them, Michelle would enjoy Starter Villain. That's the way I would put it.
yes.
And I don't mean that in an insulting way to Scalzi.
No,
I'm just saying, yeah.
I think also it's possible Obama would enjoy it, but he would not carry it around.
Right. That's yes.
Because who wouldn't enjoy it? It's a delightful book.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
should listen to our episode about it,
Yes.
our interview
And
with John Scalzi,
our interview with
which you would
Scalzi,
have to
yes.
become a patron to enjoy.
Right. One thing that was weird to me was the idea that the AFs didn't have a sense of smell. That just strikes me as a curious decision. And
B3s.
What?
B3s did.
Oh, did the B3s do? Okay. Maybe that was the
Yeah.
part that like left me puzzled. But yeah. So that was just struck me as weird.
I already said that AF, I kept reading as fuck
Mhm.
for a while, which would be funny. And then we already kind of got into this about whether Josie would be dumb like Klara, and you're just saying that Klara would keep all those opinions to herself.
Mhm.
But would she have to say the stuff that Josie believes and just not believe it herself?
Yes, she would be
Like-
engaging in an active imitation. That's the way I interpreted that.
Right. So
Yeah.
even so Josie knows that the sun sets and revolves around
The Earth. Or
the Earth.
no, vice versa. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Sorry,
right.
Earth
And
revolves
she
around
also
the sun.
knows what a
Yeah.
sink is. So Josie she would have to pretend to know what a sink is.
Well, again, that's what large language models do sometimes. They don't actually know stuff, but they can act as if they know stuff. So,
And then she would. Okay. All right. Yep. Okay.
Erica pointed this out to me, and it was an interesting question, which is, I don't understand why the AFs are retired like to a scrapyard. It strikes me that the best use of AFs in this universe is not actually to take care of only children. It's to take care of the elderly. This is where actually I think AFs would do a world of good, because it is the elderly that are much more in need of assistance. Like the idea that you would actually have home health aides that would be AFs, that actually is interesting to me, and I think would be a more interesting novel to write.
Like they have basically Teddy Ruxpins for people in nursing homes. Like they have this. Actually, I could literally get emotional about this, because in a nursing home situation, assisted living situation, since you can't have pets,
Yeah,
you can buy these basically stuffed animals that have pet, like will purr or meow or bark. And that these have been shown to have a positive effect on mental health, just to have that level of company. So
yeah,
what I'm saying is, that's
we're
true.
in agreement on this. Yes,
I kind of think that there must be some limited lifespan to them.
it does seem like they're the slow fade.
But then instead of putting her in a closet, like don't donate her to a nursing home.
Right. I will say this is where Ishiguro is elliptical, but like the idea that this slow fade exists does suggest you're right, that there's a planned obsolescence. Although again, the political economy of that doesn't make a ton of sense, because you're just paying a tremendous sum of money for something that like doesn't last that long.
Okay, my last thing is no one in this book talks like a normal person. Everyone sounds like an AI, and the AI also has inconsistently sounds like an AI. Like she uses contractions, but there's this weird thing that Ishiguro has her do where she speaks in third person all the time.
Yeah.
Except when she doesn't. I got so annoyed by it. I went through and started underlining the times when she said the word you to someone, and she does. She doesn't always say like.
So she knows the second person, but she just doesn't use it.
Like she says, Rick thinks da 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 da, or Klara would like to go with Rick to blah blah blah. But then she'll say thank you.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like just do a search and replace, my man.
Are you saying that Ishiguro would have been helped if he had actually used a little AI in the writing of the book?
But like, why do that? I mean, what I kept thinking in terms of like this elliptical stuff, and another reason why I would separate it out from like real sci-fi, is that the world, like a person who's a sci-fi author, I think we can agree, having covered so much of it for this, is that you pick and choose where you do your world building.
Right.
But you do some world building.
Yes. Agreed. And the world
And-
building has to have an internal logic to it. And that's the part this is where I agree with you. I'm intrigued by Ishiguro's world building, but I also agree with you that I don't think he's entirely thought everything out. And that's a problem because it raises more questions than it answers. So yeah, like as I said, I liked a lot of this book, but this is far from a perfect book. Yeah.
Yeah. This is someone who's, you know, a Nobel Prize winner who's decided I'm going to write some science fiction. Not like someone who's like steeped in the genre. Colson Whitehead has read some, like he says, like Stephen King's one of his favorite authors, I think, right?
But the difference is you believe it when Colson, Colson Whitehead.
He knows the conventions of genre, right?
Yeah,
and he just also happens to be an amazing writer and thinker.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that we've reached the end. I've gotten all of it off my chest, Dan.
Oh, you know what? I feel good. If nothing else, we've accomplished something then with the recording.
And I feel like you didn't have to defend it. I think maybe I overstated to you in our text about how much I was really mad yesterday. I was like,
do you want me to read to you what your text said? Hold on, let me just pull these up. This was, today you said, upon reflection, I hated this book. I'm mad at it. And then I kind of hate it, you said yesterday. So, I'm just gonna point out, to be fair, the text were pretty clear.
And I did have a lot of this fucking book in here. Also, there's this part where she says, a large woman whose shape resembled the food blending machine said, and I'm like, why don't you just fucking call it a blender?
Oh, this reminds me, I will. So this was something I liked that you didn't, but also it was something I had a problem with. I like the way that that Klara describes people looking at screens and calls them oblongs, basically, which Eric and I always like to joke that our dog Mimi, like when she sees us looking at phones or watching the television, that in Mimi's brain, it's like, why are you looking at rectangles? I don't understand. And so like that resonated with me.
Its relationship to Mimi made you more sympathetic to
it.
Whereas
possible.
I was like, she would have heard them call them phones.
Right.
Like,
but this also raised again, this was a part of the world building that made no sense to me, which was the idea that the Lifted decided that they study better by studying alone and remotely. And I'm like, guess what? That is absolutely not the best way to study. That's a real big problem.
And then this is one of the ways where they talk like AIs. They have interaction meetings. That's what they call them.
That totally made sense. Let me say, I thought that was funny in the sense of like that clearly they are now so socially isolated that they have to do this. And by the way, they are horrible. So, it was just.
Oh, and the kids are terrible kids.
Yeah, that totally resonated for me.
Yeah.
All right, now we are done, I think.
I'm like looking through it and like being like, Black Mirror did this better. Black Mirror did this better. Jesus Christ, the allegories. All right. I think we've said enough. Dan, if people cannot get enough of you, do they need to make a robot?
Please don't. Please don't make a robot Dresner. That would be bad. Just come and check out my Substack. It's called Dresner's World. Talk about a lot of stuff. I'm also on Blue Sky at Dan Dresner. She is on Blue Sky at Anna Marie Cox.
I went back on Twitter, Dan. I went back on Twitter.
Wait, you did what?
I went back on Twitter.
Oh my, I didn't know this. Whoa.
So I had a person who I'm doing some business with say to me, you become more valuable if we can tell others that want to work with us
that you're on Twitter.
You have 1 million Twitter followers.
Yep. Oh,
so I went back on Twitter, but I swear a couple things. No political content.
Okay.
Just good stuff. Cute animals, recovery related, and pimping what I'm doing.
You are at Anna Marie Cox on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
And you have a website. I believe it's www.annamariecox.com.
That's right. Spelled the same, pronounced differently. And very important announcement, which is that I am doing another session of my memoir writing workshop. It starts on April 23rd. It is 25% off with code EARLYBIRD. It is fantastic. If you want to know more about it, you can go to annamariecox.com/third story. I am still writing for New Republic and MSNBC and also CNN lately as well. And by the time this comes out, I probably will have out a piece on Barry Weiss.
Oh my! Oh, looking forward to that one. That'll be a fun
She's
read.
having one of her, why can't we just all debate debates? Like,
Okay.
let's be civilized and talk about problems and not hate each other afterwards. I know that I'm doing an imitation, but like it's one of those things like where people in that intellectual dark web think that it's bad that people who feel like their humanity is being threatened can't be more calm and rational about stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a debate on immigration with no real immigrant rights people, but I'm going and I'm going to write about it.
Oh, so. I look forward to that. It's possible by the time this comes out, I will have something in Politico. Might be the week after. So we will see how that goes.
All right. Well, until then,
keep this channel open for more.